Hey! Hello, dearies. Here we are, episode 9 of Rupaul's Drag Race season 10. So, last week we waved goodbye to Vixen. For most of us, it was a little bit too long in the tooth. Just like me today, a little bit too long in the tooth. The worst thing was that was the first time we got to see a softer side to her. And if we'd seen it earlier, I think we'd all have liked her a lot more than we do. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody hates her, but as Vixen has left, she's left a quote on the mirror that says, "Evil triumphs when good drag queens do nothing." And that is a quote from Edmund Burke, who was a member of Parliament. The direct quote is, "The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing." So it wasn't shade at Eureka or anybody else. It was her stance as a drag queen. You know, she goes out there and she stands up and has her voice. She uses it, which is what she's saying the rest of us should do. And I agree with her. Get out there, be heard, be seen. So, next day, and we're back in the workroom, and everybody is being shady as hell to Aquaria. Basically saying that she's got no personality whatsoever. And this is the thing with Aquaria, is that, like, as a physical performer, she's great. And you're seeing a lot more of it now. You know, every time that there's a renouncement, she's like, and really using her face. But then when it comes to her voice, it's just not there. She just doesn't have the oral skills. You know, physically she's very good, but orally, hey, she just doesn't really know what to do. This week's renouncement is not Rupaul. Shocker. It's Stephen Colbert. So we know, because it's him, the main challenge is going to be an acting challenge this week. In comes Rupaul, and the mini challenge this week is pants down, bottoms up. We've seen stuff like this before. The underwear is provided by Rounder Bum Underwear. And I gotta be honest, the front of these pants looks beautiful. Like, everything is in exactly the right place. The back of these pants, now they either got 20 guys with the most horrible bottoms that they could find, or they just are shit pants. Because out of all 20 of those people, there was maybe 3 guys who looked like they had a nice ass. The rest of them, they were just all like weird shapes. So for an advertisement, this was like the worst advertisement going. It was terrible. Rupaul announces the maxi challenge for this week, which is going to be Breast World. Aquaria won the mini challenge, so she was the one who managed to remember that those two were wearing the same pants and wasn't just blinded by these naked bodies. So she gets to choose who gets which part. And at this stage, she's been called out by the girls already for, you know, being overconfident and maybe not wholly in touch with reality. So she decides, okay, I'll let everybody else pick their parts, which is really nice. And generally, as a rule, that works better, I think, when you're working as a team. There is no team leader here, though, so it's not like she's going to be on the spike if it all goes wrong. So in that instance, pick the one you like best and then let everybody else choose. So in the main challenge, Cracker is Julie, Asia is Parasailing, which of course is a play on Sarah Palin, Monet is Viv, Eureka is Rosie the bingo caller, Cameron is Muffy, and Aquaria is Dyslexa. Now Aquaria thinks at this point she's made a massive mistake because Dyslexa has like 3 lines and none of them are particularly punchy. They've all got their parts and they're kind of practicing and doing their thing in the workroom. And then in comes Ru. She's really on the offensive this week. She's really clear with everybody. Like, this is the final 6. You need to take whatever it is that you're good at and you need to crowbar that in to what it is that you're doing somehow so that you can shine. And it's basically the same message to everybody. You know, you can't be anybody else, so just be the best you. The person that I find it kind of most interesting with is with Cracker. This is like a whole new nugget of information for her that she's never ever heard before, that actually being yourself on stage is immensely powerful. That's not how I operate. Like, I create this wall with my intellect, and that's what I give, that's what I do, that's kind of who I am. All that happens when you do that when you're acting is that you create a block between you and the audience. Like, yes, you're portraying a different character, but there has to be elements of you in order for those people out there to engage with you as a human being in front of them. In the main challenge, Michelle Visage and Ross Matthews are the directors. It doesn't feel like there's been any kind of rehearsal or any staging or blocking or any of that stuff seems to have happened. It feels like the girls have been given their script, they've had a day to go away and learn it, and then they've been told, right, now we're going in and we're just going to do it. So whatever they've kind of decided is what it's going to be. And Michelle is quite clear, you know, we're going to give you some hints and tips and bits of direction, but ultimately the final performance, the way that you do it, is down to you. Which, unless you have pulled the script apart and you've really looked at what is the script giving me, that's a very difficult thing to ask an actor to do. Because an actor usually will learn their script, they'll look at what is in there for them, what is the script telling them about that character, and then it's up to the director to really kind of channel what it is that they want for the overall, which I think is part of what plays into what we see happening on the stage. The energy throughout the whole scene is very sporadic and very disparate. Like, there's a couple of people who clearly know what they're doing, Asia and Monet, you know, in terms of people who've got lots of words, they know the direction that they're coming at it from and they're really confident with it. Whereas you don't seem to get that confidence from anybody else apart from Aquaria, and that's because she hasn't got that many lines. Eureka is really, really nervous, and you can see that she feels really unprepared for this. Cameron has decided that she's going to be really upset the whole way through, and so there's absolutely no light and shade in her character whatsoever. And then we've got Cracker. And the thing with Cracker is that she's playing it as Cracker rather than looking at who is this character. And actually, the person who Cracker has been given needs to be really warm and welcoming and human. But she's playing it as Her performance is actually really robotic when it needs to be absolutely the opposite to that. It needs to be much more human. Like when Michelle is talking about, you know, don't worry, honey, it'll grow out, and maybe just put a hat on it. You're being a complete bitch, but you need to make it feel like you're not being a bitch. You need to make it feel like you're being a human being. It's really interesting to watch Eureka struggle so much with this, because actually she's picked a bubbly, effervescent character, and then everything's just really nervous and throwaway. Everything about her performance is really throwaway. In all the other challenges that she's really committed to it and she's gone for it, whereas in this it just feels like that is completely lacking. The surprise performance in this, really, one of them is Aquaria. She doesn't have that many lines, but everything is about the physical performance of it. So it's meant that she's able to interact and respond to what's going on stage rather than having to be really thinking about what the lines are. The other, like, proper wig snatch, oh my god, I was not expecting this performance, is from Asia, because she's been absolutely terrible in every acting challenge so far. It seems like the talk from Rupaul has really hit home, that she's gone, I need to just bring Asia, the best Asia that I am. And that's exactly what she's doing. Now we're on to Elimination Day, and it's Silver Fox theme. So everybody is 50 years older and they're coming up and down the runway as their 50-year-old older self. So I have come as my 50 years older self. By this stage, I imagine that, well, I mean, A, I'll probably be dead, realistically, and B, I'll have grown my hair out and I'll not be wearing wigs anymore, and I've given up wearing nails, and I'll have pretty much given up everything, to be honest. There, makeup on, let's go and do this. The girls are talking about getting older while they're getting ready. Eureka confides in everybody that she is actually genuinely really scared of getting older. And then it moves on to Aquaria talking about how she hangs around with a lot of older people and she feels like she can relate to older people better than she can with people of her own generation, which I think is interesting in that Aquaria doesn't really seem that able to relate to anybody, really. Like, her level of... she's just really awkward, isn't she? So it's just a bit weird. And she also seems kind of unaware that she's not that great at interacting with other people. So maybe she thinks she can relate to older people better and that, you know, she has a better relationship with them than she actually does. So she talks about Amanda Laporte and then the other girls talk about Miss Darcel. Every scene has their really old drag queen. Ours was Nana in Manchester. Sadly, she passed away this year, and so now it's probably Belinda Scandal. She's probably the oldest drag queen. Love you, Belinda. The girls move on and talk about dating. So they're talking about how difficult it is as a drag queen to date. And most of the girls that I know absolutely relate to this. I'm really lucky in that I'm married. I'm a fully paid up member of the marriage club. And we've been together actually since I started doing drag. It was actually my husband who encouraged me to start doing drag in the first place. Read into that what you will. So we're on to the runway. And this week my tops were Cameron. I thought it was like the prosthetic, everything else, the whole performance of it, I thought was really great. Like, it was a really committed performance to being a really old Cameron. My next favourite was actually Monet. You know, I'm down with let's make it absolutely ridiculous. You know, rather than it has to be a really sensitive and thoughtful interpretation of this. No, it doesn't always have to be that. It doesn't. That's what drag absolutely does not have to be. No, the costume's not amazing, but the idea is there and it is funny, and her commitment to the joke is fully realised. The other person whose runway look I really liked this week actually was Aquaria. I totally got her reference. I thought it was really great that we got to see a really old looking Cameron, a ridiculous looking Monet, and then an old and still glamorous and still like working it interpretation of Aquaria. My bottoms, the ones that I really wasn't that keen on, I didn't feel like Asia's was great. Just, I think it was the wig thing that did it. The rest of the outfit I didn't mind so much, but I think it was the wig thing. I didn't like Eureka's. I didn't think it was on par with what we're expecting from Eureka. It was just a bit easy. So my least favourite this week was Cracker. Like, it just read as 45 rather than 85. You know what I mean? It just didn't seem like it was fit for the criteria of the actual challenge itself. Then we're on to Breast World, the screening. This is where we get to see, as a viewer, just how important editing actually is. Because in this actual screening, nobody looks like they were absolutely terrible. Eureka still looks unsure in a lot of it, and they kept in the bit where she fumbles with the hairdryer, which they could have not put in there, but they did, so they did that for a reason. Asia absolutely smashes it. She looks great. I think Aquaria does exactly the same, smashes her part. And if you watch, you know, as she's on the side, she's always in character actually, so she's doing a really great job. Cracker just doesn't manage to sell it as being, you know, the, hi, how are you? Welcome to Breast World. My name's Julie. there's not that warmth there because it's so robotic. And she sounds really robotic throughout it. The person in the editing who I think doesn't come across that well is Monet. It just feels a little bit kind of one note all the way through. And while she's interjecting little bits and her lines are funny, her performance is just a little bit soft and just a little bit safe. You know, there's no bite to it, and I think that there could have been a bit more bite in there from her. Cameron's performance, while it's not brilliant, isn't tragic. It's not absolutely awful, and that's from the editing. No, we don't get the moment that we want from it, you know, where we actually go, oh, wow. So now we're on to the judging itself. Asia is the winner, and I think she's the winner purely because out of everybody, her performance in the challenge was way above everybody else's because I don't think that her runway look was all that great. The people in the bottom this week are Cracker, Eureka, and Cameron. Lip syncing for their lives are Cameron and Eureka! So Cracker is safe. This is a great lip sync. I think up until about halfway through the song, Cameron is wiping the floor with Eureka. And then I think Eureka kind of goes, I have got to start really going for this now. This week we get a double Shante You Stay. So nobody goes home, which, does that mean that next week we'll get a double elimination? Does that mean that we'll get a lip sync for your life situation in the final like we had last season? Will there be 4 of them like last season? Or will it be 3? Or we don't know, do we? This, of course, is the first week where we haven't heard Miss Vanjie, Miss Vanjie, Miss Vanjie. So I thought I'd better do it for you just so that you don't feel like you've missed out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back next week with episode 10 of RuPaul's Drag Race season 10. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Sharing is caring. Bye. Bye.